honeypotting, and I call it like tripwire architecture, but like, so you have your honeypots as canaries, and then canary tokens are like secrets or files, or they've got a whole bunch of different things you can select that if somebody uses it, so it's like an AWS access key that you can disguise as a legitimate access key and then just put them everywhere. And then if anyone ever actually uses it, you get an alert. And so they also have an API, and so you can programmatically generate them and distribute them everywhere, which is awesome because I don't know, I really like tripwire architecture because standard detection engineering is really expensive when you're just gathering all the data, right? And trying to sift through it for signal. But if you can just plant tripwires everywhere in places that an attacker will always go after, then it's a really high confidence, low noise signal you can get. So I don't know, I really like it, and it's like really cheap.
I'm sure like we've already captivated our audience with that intro right into like the details. Yeah, man, it totally is. Hey, guys, here we are. This is the Paramify podcast. Stardate 11/15/2023, Provo, Utah, United States, planet Earth. Here we are.
Captain
right?
Kenny vlog.
That's right, Captain Kenny, Sergeant.
Keaton.
Yeah.
For duty.
Okay. Anyways, I'm sorry, man. Red cards.
Right, man. We're in a red room.
That military time.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that anyway. What is 1,300 hours? No, we're not even there. It's like 12. It's 1,200 hours. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Are you an Army brat?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. We're here today with Josh Pugmire, Bryson Loughmiller, homies, Utah, representing InfoSec in Utah. Keaton's here too, man. We got Russ on the mic. Well, he's like doing sound and yeah. He's got. What's up, Russ?
I'm not on camera, but I'm back here.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Yeah, man, we're so pumped to have you guys, and I was just talking about, just so you know, for all of our listeners, there is no agenda, so listen at your own risk. But I guarantee you we're going to have some awesome stuff. Like, how did we get to know you? I can't remember. When did we first meet? So was that Adobe?
It was Adobe for me, yeah.
Uh-oh. It was early days Adobe Omniture.
Okay, we're at the Omniture building.
Yes.
Okay, I just found an Omniture pic, and I posted about it today on LinkedIn about, like, how many pics that I steal. I'm kind of like, what do they call that? Klepto? Or what is it? Yeah, when it comes to like pens and pencils and guitar picks, if you let me borrow it, it's likely going in my pocket and I will just like, no shame, take it.
There's got to be a word for it, right? Klepto is like you go out and you're intentionally stealing stuff. You're like accidental kleptomaniac.
Okay, yeah. It's something under that, yeah. Because I don't want to be a bad person, but I just have so many guitar picks that I steal, but I still end up losing them. They always end up in like couches, and where I can always find a guitar pick? I can always find a guitar pick underneath. Yeah. In my, underneath my driver's seat.
Wow.
Always. Yeah. I bet you we could find some if we need one. Yeah.
That's because you play so much in your car.
Right.
Yeah.
Air guitar. They
Air
need
guitar.
a pack for the air guitar.
I've kind of been out of it because I had surgery on my hands like a year ago today. So I had crazy carpal tunnel and cubital tunnel. So I got a nice gnarly scar right in here. Got a nice scar right there. And I couldn't like feel my hands. So when we were like, I was like coding for Paramify, just like hour after hour after hour after hour. And it's really bad code. So it's even more hours. Until Tyler is just over there. What are you doing? Stop it. You could have just done this in 3 lines.
Your keyboard privileges.
Yeah. I got fired a long time ago from Dev, right? And so I'd have like 6 functions, and he's like, you could have just done this. And it's like 3 lines. Anyways, that's why. But I remember at one point, I stopped feeling my left hand. I couldn't feel it. And I'm like, what's happening? I'm getting old. this is the worst possible thing. Turns out that it's just cubital tunnel.
Mm.
And so I was coding with just like one finger at the time. Anyways, I'm just getting back into it, guitar.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll get back in there. Anyways, I had found an Omniture pick, and it reminded me of Omniture, and here we are talking about Omniture and the Omniture building.
Yeah. We had good times there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you want, I can share my first experience with Kenny.
I'm pretty embarrassed because I don't really remember it that much.
No, it was really, I think like in the old Omniture days, Omniture Adobe, they kind of like, I think they had 3 different buildings there at the old WordPerfect area.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones we were in, we had these high cubicle walls. We broke up the day by going and playing foosball, usually like half an hour at a time. I don't think our boss knew it, but it was fun. And that group has stayed tight since then. But I think I'd met you by way of introduction, and then were you already upstairs at the time? Did you start?
I can't even remember where I sat. I feel like I was on the bottom floor, and then
They moved you.
I don't know, man. I was getting tossed around like a rag. I was really unwelcome because I was like the first security person for like the audit group.
Yes.
Right? They didn't have any security prowess at all, right?
Yeah.
And so they hired me. They had like 0.01 level prep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I met you downstairs because we were in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
My group was, and then you had moved upstairs, I believe. Anyway, I'd met you. I kind of knew what you were doing. I don't think anyone else in the group playing foosball knew. We'd been over playing, and for some reason you were over in that building too. And when we walked out of the building that day after playing, you were in front of us, and one of the guys with us was talking about how he's doing not anything nefarious, but using or having data access that he probably shouldn't have had.
Yeah. No, he said, I just use the back door. Like, I don't use CAS. So I remember what it was. He's like, so I think someone, Todd Harper or somebody or who was it? Dan or something. Dan, someone who's like long left, built this really, really kludgy, it was called CAS, Central Authentication System. And it was a bunch of scripts, and it was like something I would code, man. It was like, and that was what was like authenticating. And I think I remember hearing specifically, I just use backdoor. I don't use that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, interesting. And I happened to be like, my first thing was like, hey, because when you're talking about security, I'm such a nerd, right? But the first thing is like, who has access to this? Who can make changes, right? And like, are you monitoring that? And I'm like, backdoor. I'm like, you can't do that. And I was, we talked about red cards already, and so I just listened, and I was like I was not inconspicuous.
I mean, I knew what your role was, and I could tell that you were like
so embarrassed. I'm such a dork.
Your ears were perking up. You're listening to the whole conversation.
What are you?
And I think the guy who was saying it started saying it a little louder because he could tell that you'd been tipped off of what he was doing. So pretty funny. But that was one of my earliest memories.
Yeah,
of Kenny
just trolling me, man. That's so funny. Oh my gosh, what a dork.
Bryson, how did you meet Kenny? It was at Adobe.
We sat right next to each other.
Yeah. I don't even remember when we first met, but all I remember is talking about guitar was the main thing.
And I convinced you to get a PRS.
Exactly, yeah.
And you do not regret that decision, do you?
No, I love that guitar so much.
Yeah, you have no guitar envy ever.
No.
You go into a guitar center, and they're like, hey, you want to play this? And I go, no, I don't. Shut up.
I did buy a Strat as well.
What? What? You've changed. What?
It's for the clean, for when I'm playing clean, or some funk guitar.
Dude, just move the knob on your PRS, man. It doesn't.
Kenny's about to issue a red card. That's right.
Red cards for like
I love both of them for different things.
Yeah. I also have a Strat.
Okay, well.
Yeah. I was just kidding. It's not very good. Yeah, I give it to my son.
No, that PRS, I will like take it to different shops if I need like a little bit of work done on it or whatever, and without fail, they will pull it out and they like call people over they're like, I've never seen one like that. Have you seen it? This is so nice.
You got the blue sunburst, right?
It's not a blue sunburst. It's aqua blue, which like I don't even know. It's like got a purple edge, and then it fades to like turquoise towards the center. I love it. It's really nice.
We should have just had both of you bring your guitars.
Yeah.
And I can sit on the side.
Yeah.
Just have a jam session.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like
Kenny's about 10 times better than I am. So yeah.
No, dude, are you kidding? No, man, you're a man.
Like you're just like, oh yeah, I like finished like learning eruption and stuff.
I see where you're at.
Well, I can't play like Eddie, but it's definitely something that you just kind of get better at until you get cubital tunnel. And then you're like, dude, now I have to like, yeah, man, it sucked. No, I can still do it, and I'm annoying all the kids again. You know, like,
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
I'm curious with both of you guys. So you guys are both working in cybersecurity now. How did you guys get into this industry? And I guess, Josh, we could start with you.
Yeah. Kind of an interesting path to cybersecurity, I guess. Studied information systems at BYU. In the program, it was pretty fun. I actually did not like the coding aspect. It was like, I enjoyed most of it. We had some fun with a lot of the different professors, but when it got to the coding class, I was like, I just have a lot of interest in this. So I went through that program with kind of this, not like I had a distaste for it, but it's more like, I'd rather do anything but code if I can. So finished my bachelor's, started at Adobe as an intern, got brought on full-time, but when I got brought on, I was doing procurement work because a role opened up.
Charlie?
Yeah, working with Charlie.
He's at Databricks right now, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Living in like Oklahoma or Arkansas or something.
He moved to Arkansas?
Bought like a ton of land out there. Anyway.
Huh.
Tangent. So I did that for a little while. I felt like it was pretty good. It gave me a lot of insight into more of what things looked like within a data center because I was really doing a lot of the purchasing for data centers and supporting that. I think my first role was actually like I went through and clicked on the FedEx, UPS links to make sure stuff was getting delivered. That was as an intern. They're like, we don't want to give you too much of an important project. You're 3 months into this. Let's see what you can do. And I just click and update it, spreadsheets all day. I don't know where stuff was, but I did that for a couple years. I got really bored really fast.
Huh. That's interesting that you would get bored with that.
I'm not trying to throw anybody in procurement under the bus, but I did get very bored doing it. So I went back and got my MBA. In the middle of my MBA program, Blake Entrata, who you've already had on the show.
Yes.
He and I had already known each other from the days of Omniture Adobe. He was in the group that saw Kenny inconspicuously.
It's like, oh, hey, do you remember when we first met, Kenny? Yeah. This has been going on. I'm like, I'm wondering if they'll forget me.
Yeah. So Blake and I had been friends since then. He had since been made manager of a team that led mostly like cybersecurity engagement with customers. And I'd been asking him if I could jump over and join his team. I was trying to figure out a way of getting back into security and more of the technical stuff. So I actually interviewed with him once for a position. He passed on me and I was like, what are you doing? Thought we were good friends here. So I asked him for some feedback. He was like, you have no experience. And I said, well, that's fair, but how do I get experience if you're not going to give me a chance on this team? So we worked something out with my manager and with Blake where I was giving him 10% of my time each week. And I started doing all the stuff for his team. And then when a position opened up, then I jumped over and that's how I got into security. And then since then, it's been kind of a cool journey. I think that role gave me a lot of appreciation and understanding for security as a whole and compliance because I worked with Kenny a lot over at Adobe asking for stuff. And then, yeah, I mean, to this point, I feel like it's kind of been just a cool, kind of unique journey. A lot of like interesting customer conversations around security, some more intense than others.
What are some of your like pretty intense ones that you can talk about? Like
some of the cooler ones, I mean, we've had some really intense and others that were just like interesting. We met with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in person. That was cool. That was in Indianapolis. It was kind of like show up. We talked to them for a little while. I did one with Rite Aid. That was an intense one. I showed up and remembered thinking Rite Aid's like corporate building felt like you'd expect a Rite Aid corporate building to feel. Like I felt like I walked into a pharmacy, sort of. Really? Yeah, it was interesting, but it was cool. They were very gracious. I met with their CISO and several other business stakeholders. I remember being super nervous because it was like my first time meeting in person with a customer. It was just me and this guy from sales was trying to close a deal, and I was the last thing standing between them and the contract. And so I walk in knowing that the sales guy's like leaning on me to make sure everything gets smoothed out, and feel like my face super red when you're nervous. Oh, yeah, it's kind of that feel, and I'm like, I'm sure I'm sweating like crazy underneath. But the CISO just like leans in like this and is just asking all these intense questions over the table, and I'm trying to answer as many as I can. And some of them were really technical, but some of them weren't. So the more technical ones, I was just trying to defer to, well, maybe not defer. I was attempting to defer, but I just told him I'd get him more information later. So that was like two of the really fun ones. A few over the phone that were interesting. A certain camera manufacturer in the United States. They were really hard to deal with. There's a certain individual on a call that I had with them that started screaming, and I was like, drop in this call.
I want results. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. So I just said, I dropped from the call. The sales guy kind of called me, and I was like, look, this is not professional, and I know you're trying to close this deal, but I'm not going to deal with someone that's going to sit there and scream at me. And then someone else from their side actually reached out and apologized on behalf of the company, and then we worked things out without that individual in the room or on a call, and then we signed the deal. So it was kind of fun. But those are probably the bigger ones that I can remember.
They're like, great, James, now we have to sign the deal. Because otherwise...
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. And there were other really good ones that I got to work with, like a lot of the bigger Bay Area companies. It seemed like we talked to them often enough.
What are some of their biggest concerns that you see, like if you have, when you're doing these deals, what are some of the major ones that, when you're brokering deals, right? When cybersecurity is different now since AWS, right? Now it's not a nice to have, it's a must have.
I think, it varies depending on the company and like, when I'm now in the role that I'm in now, I have different concerns with how that's viewed. But back then, a lot of them just wanted to know, what does a SOC 2 look like? Great. Okay. Now that we have that, then let's get into some of the bigger details. So depending on the product at Adobe, it varied. Some of them were more intense. I remember campaign being a big issue.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if they still have that one data center.
Probably.
That has no MFA.
Probably.
It's like a garage.
Yeah. So they had a lot of issues, or not concerns, or not issues, but concerns rather around what were we doing for data encryption. A few of them really, for whatever reason, got hung up on like data loss prevention and what we had in place. I worked with you several times for that because we didn't have a good story over there at the time.
Well, I still don't know a good DLP solution.
Yeah.
Like, is there one? Like, it's kind of like with the amount of data, it's like going to the top of a hill on a windy day with a down feather pillow and just going, it just like goes everywhere.
It's true.
I don't know a good DLP.
Yeah.
It's lost.
Yeah.
It's lost.
Yeah. I don't know. We didn't have a good story when I was at Adobe. We put something together that most of them accepted and then it was okay. But I do remember a few that really wanted to know what availability was going to look like. They wanted to know if one in particular gave me a scenario where if an asteroid hit planet Earth and took out the west coast of the United States, how would they get access to their data?
Well, that happens. I'll be sending you my resume.
The apocalypse is here, but I gotta know how my website is performing.
Yeah, if US West goes down, that's it, guys. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, those are funny conversations to have, and often I would poke holes in their logic, and they didn't appreciate that. But usually there was some like end user on the call that was like, "What are we even asking these questions for?"
Yeah, I think that's really an important skill to have, just in business in general. And I think that skill of, like, customers, they ask for the craziest things.
Yeah.
They ask for things that I'm like, what? Why do you want that? Why do you want it to be worse? It's already so hard.
Yeah.
Right? Just you make it easier for yourself, right? So there are those conversations. That's a great skill, right? So your side has been on, the business of security, right? And like how important it is. And so you're talking like, what are the strategic directions that we need to, what are our customers telling us?
Yep.
Because a lot of times in security, for the engineers, we want to build cool stuff, right? And we want to like handle all these things, but a lot of times security and actually roadmap, they're at odds, right? I know that I know that for myself now, and I can testify because I'm building my own solution, building software, and fortunately been fired from dev team, but I'm still very much involved in the product at Paramify, and it's always priority, right? It's always an issue of priority. So security is going to slow down dev, right? And roadmap. And so how do you guys balance that? I would like to get your take on that, Bryson, because you're coming from you're one of the pretty well-known engineers from a security perspective here in Utah. So you totally are.
Yeah.
You totally are. So I want to get your take on that.
Trophy on your desktop.
I do have a trophy.
You and Scott Pag, man.
That's right.
Yeah. Is Scott still in Scott's still in Utah.
Yeah.
Is he still at Netflix? Yeah. We're going to get Scott on here.
Oh, that'd be great. Scott's brilliant.
Isn't he great?
Scott's brilliant.
Yeah. He's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always the battle, is weighing, because you could swing way too far to either side, right? Because you could make your product like totally impenetrable, but you're not going to have a product, right? Because you're spending so much time on just trying to prevent all the security issues that you're not actually moving forward the needle on the product. So I think it's always a balance where you have to sit down and weigh the risks of the things that you're trying to protect against versus the overall, benefit to the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately security's job is to mitigate risk to the company across a large landscape, right? But also our job is to empower the business to make sure that the business is successful, right? Because that's our ultimate goal as well, right?
You don't go into business for security, right?
Right. And
sorry.
Unless you're Paramify.
Well, yeah.
Well, even still, like
vendor, specifically.
I'm a client.
But I think that's why, and for you guys, right? I think that's why early on, it's such a strong opportunity to build systems that just integrate security natively into the SDLC early on. Because if you don't do it at the early phases, then that's when it becomes really painful, right? Because if you can build in systems that just make the secure path the easiest one, then all of your all of your code is already going to be secure. Your processes will have that baked in from the beginning, because it's really the going back and uprooting existing systems and fixing tech debt that becomes the really painful process, right? Like,
what are some of those key areas, like that you've seen in your experience where tech debt needs to be addressed? Like, so secrets in code is a big one, typically.
Secrets in code, packages, so package vulnerabilities is a big one. Within the cloud, just misconfigurations that lead to insecurities. Basic core architecture decisions can have really significant impacts in the long run if security is not involved at the outset, right? Like,
sounds like you have some experience there. All right.
Well, I mean, it's just a thing, and it's just a a nature of the beast in software is that like early on when software is being developed, they're just trying to survive, right? And so they're not thinking about security early on. And so oftentimes the architecture decisions early on are not going to think about those, and you're not going to have a security expert either who's a part of the business at that point. And so you make decisions that later on you have to come back to and either re-architect your authentication or your base architecture or whatever the case is to just include or fix those security issues. And it's massively problematic, right? Like if you're in a containerized environment and you just kick off the entire product with running your containers as root, like that can be really painful to go back and take all of your microservices and fix that in all of it. But if you just do that at the outset, it's not a big deal, right? And then you solve major security problems. So
I love that example of the containers. That's great. Like, yeah, Keaton, you had something.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, you're obviously very knowledgeable with all this stuff, and we heard a little bit of Josh's beginning into information security. So I'd love to hear about your start as well.
Sure. Yeah, so went through the IS program as well at BYU. Honestly, I had an interesting path where I didn't know where I was going to go with my career. I actually almost ended up in film, thought about going into mechanical engineering, and then had some friends who went to the IS program as well. And I was like, oh, business is kind of interesting to me as well, and I've always been interested in computers and technology ever since I was a little kid. So I was like, maybe I can meld those two interests, Took IS 201, really enjoyed it.
The one with Excel?
Yes. Yeah. My Excel.
I tell people I majored in Excel. I'm so good at it.
In 201, I remember we did the VBA course, right? Yes. And I was sitting there while they were teaching VBA, and it was the day we learned loops in VBA, and I built a text bombing application from Excel in VBA while we were in class because I just wanted like a thing I could, I don't know, prank my roommates or whatever. So I figured out how to write this like dumb little piece of VBA where you'd put in a phone number and the carrier, and then you could push a button, choose the number of messages you wanted to send and what the text of it was, and click, and it would just like blast.
That'd be awesome to use. Like we could still use that for like to counter like the people that spam you, and just like, hey, maybe you could like strike back. I mean, there's
TCPA laws, different things where you might get in trouble, but
Bryson was
fight back.
He was just early days Twilio.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I remember I went home and my roommate was like, oh, try it on my phone. And it was like, it wasn't a dumb phone, but it was like not, I don't know, it was like an early Android. And we turned it on, his phone just crashes. We're like, whoops. But anyway, so I started doing that, really enjoyed it. Wasn't sure which area I wanted to go to, and took Anthony Vance's Intro to Security class. And it was like my favorite class I ever took. It was so fascinating, just like the Wild West that was going on in security.
Was this in the undergrad or because you did the MISM?
I did the MISM, yeah, the master's program. And I can't remember if it was an intro class or not, but I took that class, and then I decided to do my emphasis in security in the master's program because I was like, this is fascinating. I want to get more into it. So did that, took, the master's or the security emphasis track, which included like some forensics classes and basic stuff, and then got an internship at Adobe.
That's where I met you.
Where we all met. As a security analyst, and just like started digging through logs. And frankly, I was like, there was so much I didn't know. It was, I was behind. But I had some really good mentors and people there at Adobe, like Ethan Dodge, just like would sit down and teach me things that I was like, I should have known at that point, but I didn't. And he would just be like, all right, we're going to go whiteboard DNS and teach you how this works. I'm like, it was awesome. It was really great to have some patient mentors that helped with that. And then, I think I was an analyst there for like 2 years, and then moved over onto the security engineering team, helped manage their IDS, Suricata, and then, I helped with the compliance dashboards. And you guys remember that, but some Splunk dashboards that helped us track like vulnerabilities and tickets across a whole bunch of
By CCF reference, I remember it.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember. I remember sitting with you. Needed to that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, we actually built those into Paramify, so you don't have to.
Oh,
you'll never have to do
compliance dashboards.
Yeah, it's all built in. It's nice. It's nice. Yeah, man. I remember what I was gonna say about but I'm not gonna even say it now. I'm not gonna even say it because it's just too long ago. Okay, man. So you said, Ethan Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
I just actually talked to him.
Oh, did you?
Isn't that funny? That's weird. I haven't talked to him for years, but I just happened to talk to him.
Yeah. He was so helpful. Really, really helpful on that team for me.
It's really cool. I think one thing that people can do if they're wanting to get into any kind of profession, but especially in security, is if you have a company that champions security, kind of like Adobe did. They assigned massive budget, right, to Adobe, so they had a whole team, and that became a place where a lot of people that are now in leadership positions in a lot of great companies, that's where it came.
Oh yeah,
came from, right? So
yeah. I mean, you look
really,
across the valley.
really great looking for mentors. Yeah.
It's true. It's very true.
Mm-hmm. So Josh, now you have a pretty cool position also. What is it again? What is the role for the security group?
Oh, I'm on the board with SLCISO,
Mm-hmm.
which is
So what does that do? Tell us about that.
it's basically just a community. I worked on this not too long ago. A community of security leaders built and run by security leaders, I think was the tagline that we used. But basically it's a bunch of CISOs or senior security leaders at their respective companies. I think on the board right now we have 7 of us. We get together weekly. The weekly meetings are like between 15 to 30 minutes on average, sometimes longer depending on what we discuss. But basically the focus is on getting security leaders together in Utah and just having that community so you can ask questions. How are you handling whatever situation at your company? Some of the companies are really big. I mean, we got representations from some large ones in the valley, and those are really fun to talk to. Others are like pretty small. Got a couple that are 50 employees maybe, and they're probably scratching the surface on like $20 million in revenue. So relatively small startups, but it's fun. We do dinners usually once a month, sometimes 2 or twice a month. We're kind of branching out a little bit in that regard too. I know you guys are looking to sponsor at some point.
Yeah.
But those are fun. And then we do 2 events annually, a big one in the spring usually that's like you and a +1 come and we bring in a guest speaker. Those are really fun events. We've had 2 speakers so far. We've held that event twice. The first one was Jason Chan. He came and talked.
Yeah.
Former CISO from Netflix. Really interesting guy.
Chaos Monkey, right?
Yes.
Isn't that his?
Yes.
Oh, was it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Think
That
about
was
it.
really cool. His story at Netflix is just kind of amazing. And some of the stuff he did and the budgets that he assigned to his teams were pretty cool. And then last year we had Jeff Collins from the FBI. He told one story in particular that was really cool about cryptocurrencies and a theft. And anyway, that was fascinating. So we do that in the spring, and then the fall we do one other. You attended the last one. It was we do the social casino night social. No actual gambling took place, but it was fun. It was really fun. Good, yeah, a good chance for people to rub shoulders. But we're also looking to give back. So we started this last year. We started doing scholarships at the local universities. So if someone's interested in studying cybersecurity, then they can apply. We give them, I don't know how much it is, but we work with them and give them scholarship money. And then we're looking to do other things to give back to the community too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a fun group for sure.
So Bryson, or Josh, like this is to both of you. Hey, what are some of your favorite security fails that you've known about that you're just like, oh my gosh, it could be like the design of something, it could be anything. You were talking about like, It's so hard to build security. And at first, like when we were signing our first deals, we were like answering questions about authentication. I'm like, oh, we're going to get all of this right because the only people who can log in are me and Tyler. Like, in fact, we can't even log in.
I think this is funny because we've had conversations now at 2 different companies and we've heard about it at other companies, but it's basically like essentially mocking, where you build in mocking to your platform or your tool so you can mock in as the customer themselves and do things, but there's typically been no restraints there. And that's been a kind of a funny one. Like part of me wants to go back in time and ask the product teams, like, hey, do you think this would be a bad thing down the road? Should we think about security first before we get into this too far?
Oh, admin consoles? Yeah, totally.
Yep.
No, we don't do that, right? But you have to provision us, right? Where you're logging in as the customer.
Well, and it's like every single piece of software has something like that they built early on that just becomes the core of how people do support and development and everything, and then it just runs way out of control. I think,
and there's way too many dependencies on it.
I mean, even like high-profile breaches have involved tools like that. Like I think the Twilio breach had last year, right? They involved one of their admin console and like the you know, I've heard it called many things, but mocking or proxy login or whatever you call it, right? Like just that account assumption.
Yeah. No, it's a tough problem.
Yeah.
Tough problem unless you design it right, to your point in the very beginning.
Yeah. I think in general, the more I've been in security and then at different companies, the more and I can preach this, I'm preaching it to the choir now, but the sooner any startup gets a security person or team in place, the better off things are. Because it's a whole lot easier to get it in at the beginning than it is to go, oh, shoot, we really screwed this up.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because in coding, you're always refactoring anyways. Yeah. You're going to just refactor. I mean, you're building stuff, and even if you have all the intentions of doing things right, you need to go through and clean things up. It's the life cycle, right? It's always improving. It's always iterating, making adjustments where you need to make those adjustments. And if you assign those responsibilities to the right people, they can own it and they can make those solutions better and better. Finally, you know what's good for security, that's going to be good for compliance.
Yeah.
And then from there you can do whatever you need to do from whether it's SOC 2 or ISO or FedRAMP or whatever it is, right? If you focus at the very beginning on the capability. Nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of specific examples that don't totally throw
the
companies under the bus.
It's hard, man. It's a really hard thing. Security is.
I got examples, but I'm like,
but I think a lot are just. It's not necessarily like a problem with a product or even the company itself, but a while ago I had a conversation and someone was just talking about like what do you think are the biggest risks to a company as a whole? And a lot of it, like my opinion's more on the people side. Like I think people are a pretty big risk, and they that comes in the form of like an overconfident engineer who does something that they shouldn't be doing.
Using backdoors.
And it doesn't tell anyone about it. Mm-hmm. Or just like really naive individuals that get caught in something that they shouldn't have been caught in. But that's where a lot of the fails I've experienced to this point.
It's people.
Right. And stuff that they've fallen for, someone in accounting that clicked on something they shouldn't have, or tried to be a little overly aggressive and in proving to other people that they were worth a promotion, a consideration, or something like that. Or other times it's just been things that have happened and someone's trying to move the business forward, but doesn't really involve security, compliance, or legal before they do something that crosses some line.
So you got to kind of pave the way, make it easy for people to do the right thing. Yeah. Really good design is going to be like, hey, yeah, like just use, this is already solved and it's actually really easy to adopt. Yeah. Just point this here or just use this instead, right?
I think excessive access is probably one of the most permissive ones, right? Mm-hmm. Just because or pervasive ones rather, because like everybody wants to help other people, and they want to just, oh yeah, you need access? Here, let me give you the access you need so you can do all these things. And everybody wants to be helpful in general, and
and then that's
good, but it can be problematic, right? Like I've seen entry level people given, intern level individuals being given root level access on tens of thousands of servers, just like right out the gate. And it's like, I don't even know this person knows how to use this access, and they could accidentally blow away all the fraud.
It undermines change management, right? At the end of that, right? It's access change monitoring. Access change monitoring. Access change monitoring.
Yeah. Right. This happened at Adobe. I don't know if you were here for this. Because I don't remember what year you started, but
2012.
I think it was a year before, and I think it's okay because it's been 10 years. No one hopefully remembers this incident, but we had an intern who was given permissions that were.
That's why I got hired.
Yeah, and do you remember what happened? Because I remember sitting at my desk, and then I just heard a ton of, because I was in the technical operations group, and that's where I was sitting, and I just remember several of the directors and managers like one guy I think threw something against the wall, and then I was like, what is going on? And then found out later that this intern had been able to basically kill a database or drop all tables. He dropped all tables, and it took him like several hours to restore it, and everyone was pissed off. I talked to the intern like the next day. He said as soon as he did it, he realized what he'd done, and he went and threw up in the bathroom.
It
was not a fun time, but that's like a perfect example of this.
Part of it is you've got to protect your people from their own
themselves.
accidents. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just a really, really hard thing to get right. In fact, all of these incidents are the reason why we're like, hey, we're going to take this seriously. So there's all sorts. That was the beginning. Honestly, what became an amazing focus for security was all on the product side, just shipping DVDs. That's where all the security was. It wasn't operational. Yeah. And then it became so critical. Yep. It's just it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Man, what else, man? We're pretty much at time, but we can keep going. Because there is no time here. Actually, I do have something kind of
construct.
Kind of time.
We invented.
I do have something coming up actually pretty soon. But yeah, if you had to pick who's your favorite fellowship character, Bryson, and then your favorite fellowship character.
I mean, it's got to be Aragorn all day.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's got to be Aragorn.
No.
Gimli.
That's awesome. He's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know we were going to get those in person. That's awesome. Yeah. Aragorn, man. Aragorn, my runner-up is Samwise.
Samwise. Oh, well, I mean, Sam's like...
Yeah, because he's just gritty.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Gritty.
This is making me realize I have to go back and watch all of those.
You do?
I almost said, instead of Gimli, I almost said Orlando.
Yeah. That's like, Keaton. Yeah.
He's pretty dang good too.
Yeah. I think in 2024 though we will change that question because it's kind of all coming to the same place, right? There's a few, anyways. Well, you guys, thanks so much for being on the show. It's a lot of fun. We're excited to continue this conversation about security wherever we are. Thanks for being here, guys.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Of course.
See you.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.